Eren Yeager post-timeskip is easily one of the most memorable characters in anime, and for good reason, but sometimes it can be easy to overlook how interesting he was pre-timeskip as well. In particular, I'm a huge fan of his growth during the Uprising arc. Not only is it incredibly fascinating by its own merit, but it's also crucial to setting up how he ended up post-timeskip. I'm gonna try to keep recap to a minimum, but I think it's important to go over what exactly this growth was. For starters, he begins the arc by lamenting how he was given a role by the universe, that his powers are evidence of that. His doubts increase, but he's confident that it'll work out. This makes sense. We would learn later on that this was a coping mechanism for him. The only way he could deal with dozens of people dying for his sake was by believing that there's something intrinsically special to him, that these powers are an immutable and essential aspect of his identity, that he was given a role by the universe. That way their deaths have meaning. This is why he's able to convince himself that things will work out. But it's feeble. Shortly after, Eren remarks how he didn't like Historia's inauthentic persona and prefers her true self. We can surmise that this is because Eren sees himself in Historia. The fact that he didn't like seeing Historia play a role suggests that Eren subconsciously wants to be alleviated from his role of saving humanity. It's a ton of pressure, and the excuse he's given himself is very fickle, because once he learns that Grisha took the power from the royal family and gave it to Eren, he breaks. There's two reasons behind this. First of all, his understanding is that Grisha took the power away from the Founding Titan's rightful owners and doomed humanity for the sake of Eren gaining these powers. As such, Eren's existence is harmful for humanity and he needs to die. Secondly, because his powers were merely transferred to him by Grisha, his powers are no longer some immutable aspect of him, the same way royal blood is for Historia. This isn't some divine role by the universe anymore. Now he has no more reason to be confident in his ability to save humanity, and now all those people died for nothing. But his death wish was solved when Historia explained the vow renouncing war, that humanity is much worse off with the Founding Titan in the hands of the royal family, and that Grisha was actually making the best choice for everyone. While this makes him no longer want to die, the underlying issues are still there. He's still bothered by him just being a normal guy given the powers. But what's noteworthy is that Historia's explanation here comes a good bit after Historia refused to eat him. She only said it to convince Eren not to feed himself to Rod. Back in the cave, she did not give two shits about Eren's role or duty to save humanity. She didn't explain that it was actually humanity's best interest for Eren to stay alive. She simply insisted he stay alive because of his worth as a person. This was a crucial first step to Eren's eventual self-acceptance. Immediately afterwards, we see that he's able to believe in himself. We know this has a profound impact on him because later on, Eren says Historia saved him in the cave, and in an interview, Isayama remarks that Historia rejecting Rod's destiny for her inspired Eren to do what he had to do. I think this is because Eren's growth here is largely about rejecting duty, or at least rejecting the expectations he feels he has to live up to. Why? Well, at the end of the arc, he has to talk with Shadis, learns what his mom said, and realizes that everyone is inherently special just by virtue of their birth. When I say Eren rejects duty, I don't mean he rejects his desire to save humanity within the walls. In fact, I think his desire strengthens. But the important bit is that it transforms from wanting to save them because he feels obligated to, and becomes a genuine desire to protect what's special. He goes from an external motivation to an internal one. It made him think outwardly and abandon his complexes. And the reason why this message seems to have resonated with him so much is because, as we see, he connects this to his belief that everyone is born free. Your inherent worth, your specialness, and your right to freedom are one in the same for Eren. The born into this world mantra was clearly adopted from Carla, but he didn't have a complete understanding of what it meant until he realized the inherent specialness that everyone possesses. His shift from duty to a stronger, genuine desire to protect humanity becomes clear when you look at his willingness to sacrifice himself. Before talking to Shadis, he felt burdened that people were dying for a non-special guy, but now he learns that no, they're actually dying for a special guy because he is special and everyone is special. But this goes both ways. Because everyone is special, it's also worth dying for them too. After all, he believes that dying for a special person is okay. This is why he said he's willing to sacrifice himself to make a change, and it provides a big contrast to when he wanted to die because he felt like he failed his duty. This very sweet, heartwarming lesson that made Eren more selfless and think outward really becomes much more twisted post-timeskip, because yes, it did make him appreciate everybody's worth. This would naturally include humanity outside the walls, but Eren is also selfish. He prioritizes himself, his country, and his friends over the rest of humanity. So if Eren values himself and parodies more than humanity, then it stands to reason that him valuing the worth of everybody, including himself and parodies, would make him more prone to rumbling. On the other hand, it definitely made him more empathetic of the outside world and thus more guilty about doing the rumbling. But the reason why I think his lesson here actually made him more selfish in the scenario is because of how much he repeats the line, "Because I was born into this world." We see this lesson actively motivating him to prioritize the freedom of himself and his country over the freedom of the world. During the declaration of war, we even see it affirm his will to live and motivate him to do what he wants to do. It's because of this that I don't think he would have valued his own personal freedom nearly nearly as much had he not talked to Shadis. In the cave, we see him wanting to abandon his dreams and thinking they were a mistake because he was under the impression he made things worse for humanity. Meanwhile here, he knows for a fact he's making things worse for humanity, he's literally committing genocide, but he's more determined to reach his personal freedom than ever before. There's a clear shift in how much he prioritizes his freedom over the greater good, and this shift seems to be due to him learning to value his inherent worth. You would expect this lesson to not have much of an effect on his decision to rumble, since it would make him value himself and his country equally as much as everybody else, but the reason seems to be because he has overcome the burden he felt to save people. As such, he cannot pursue his own personal goals and listen to the human thirst for freedom inside him. I'll go back to this later though, just keep it in mind. But I think this simultaneous increase in compassion and selfishness has a huge effect on his speech to Ymir. I don't think him assuring her that she's just a person and not a god would have been nearly as effective if he never talked to Shadis. Like, just imagine what he would have been thinking. Oh my god, Ymir, you're so special, you're so powerful, it's in your blood, oh my god, I'm so jealous. It's not like he wouldn't have felt compassion or wouldn't have wanted to free her. He's always been like that, but his complexes would have stopped him from fully properly connecting to her as a human. He would have deified her to an extent, and his speech simply would not have been nearly as effective as it was in canon. You can argue he also relates to Ymir to an extent, as she's going through a somewhat similar issue as Eren pre-timeskip, feeling burdened by their respective powers and duties. Eren saved her the same way Historia and Carla saved him. And speaking of deifying people, Yelena's role is also important to this topic. When she's talking about Eren's assault on Marley, she says that his capabilities are proof that he has the Founding Titan. I noticed this a few years ago when I reread the series, and it stuck out to me because it reminded me a lot of Eren pre-timeskip. More specifically, when he thought that his Titan was innate to him because of his capabilities, rather than just being someone who was given the Titan. I thought I might have been reaching here, but no, because in just a few chapters later, we see Yelena say Eren is special in big bold text. So the series is clearly trying to connect Yelena to the whole specialness debacle that Eren went through. We know she's wrong because it wasn't his strength that got him the founder, it was his pure willpower. However, she was also wrong because he ended up being a devil rather than the god she expected. The fact that she misunderstood his place in the story, the fact that she has the same mentality as a more naive Eren, is a way for the story to show us how deifying people can lead to huge disconnects in understanding how the person actually is. While this is interesting, it pervades basically every aspect of the story, so this isn't the only purpose behind the Yelena connection. The other more important one is that it seems to show Eren is going beyond trying to meet people's expectations. He became the devil the world expected him to be, and he became the god Paradisians expected him to be, which is why it's important to have a character like Yelena be disillusioned. The fact that Eren is not actively trying to fulfill any expectations or roles is a way to show his growth from Uprising. And the way Yelena called Eren special for his powers the same way Uprising Eren thought he was special for his powers shows how Eren in the past was sort of deifying himself as well. So it shows how far he's come in the sense that he's humanizing himself a lot more and respecting his more human wishes. We even see this in his relationship with Zeke. When he pretends to be on board with the euthanization plan, he explains that Grisha killing children was necessary for Paradis' survival as an argument for why Eldians should stop existing. Of course he's lying, but this is eerily similar to what he thought in the Uprising arc. There he wanted to die because he thought his existence and his power necessitated the death of those children. Here he's saying that Eldians should die out because their existence necessitated the death of those children. The fact that he's lying by parroting what he thought in Uprising shows how far he has come since then. Tragically, despite the fact that he's outgrown him feeling obligated to follow his role, he's still given one by the universe. The panel with Grisha and baby Eren show Eren has the eyes of the Founding Titan, almost like the story is saying the universe has assigned him the role of the Founding Titan. Both this and the conversation with Zeke show how crucial the environment is to Eren. That like in the cave, he can be pushed to adopt ideas that are diametrically opposed to his supposed nature. I often see the idea that Eren has a distinct, unique nature, and I disagree with this. Him having a distinct, unique nature would feel inappropriate in a series about how systemic issues shape people and a call for people to try to do what they can to change these systems so that people can change. It would also undermine the idea of Eren just being an everyman who happened to get a lot of power. That said, Eren did say he was born this way, and I don't disagree with him. I just think Eren's nature is humanity's indomitable will. It exists within us all, and it's just Eren embraced it more than other people have. And the reason he was able to embrace it was because his environment was conducive to that. Grisha raised him freely and valued freedom, which naturally rubbed off on Eren. Carla introduced the idea of one's birthright, which motivates Eren to fight for his and people's freedom. Him being generic and simply embracing one's human will to survive is appropriate because Eren represents humanity as a whole. He feels emotions very strongly, his sense of justice is intense, his compassion is strong, and his aggression has no limits. He represents the contradictions and intense range of emotions that humanity feels. It's even taken to a literal level once he becomes the founding titan and connects to every alien who's ever lived. This strong will to life is also embodied through the worm, who created titans because of Ymir's will to life, which is why it's appropriate that Eren ultimately uses titans to express his own will to life. He even acknowledges his normie status in the anime adaptation of the ending, where he admits he's just another idiot with lots of power. It's like what he learned in Uprising, but a more self-deprecating version of it, since he's ultimately trampling on other people's specialness as well. Him being a generic normie is also important to his relationship with the Alliance. In an early arc of the manga, Annie talks about how most people go with the flow and do the wrong things, such as following corrupt institutions, while some people go against the grain and do what's right, even if it's difficult. At the time, Eren was shown to be one of those people who went against the grain, but I guess the manga had changed its opinion on that because Eren is now representative of our capacity for violence in the cycle of conflict. Not to mention, he kinda has to follow the flow of his future memories, since foreknowledge of your decisions will naturally reduce your free will. This is ultimately why he prioritizes Paradise over the rest of humanity. Eren represents humanity, and most of humanity would make the selfish decision. Very few people would be like the Alliance and throw away their shot at security for the sake of doing the right thing. And the fact that Eren represents humanity's indomitable will to survive is very well connected to the quote, "because I was born into this world," and is actually a huge reason why that quote is my favorite in the whole series. There's something so clumsy about the way it's phrased, because it's like trying to articulate something that cannot be articulated. Like, it's just that pure, raw, unfiltered will to life that exists within us all. That's why it's so axiomatic. There's no justification beyond that. It's just, I want to survive because I was born into this world. There is no further explanation, and I think that rawness just resonates so much with me, and it makes this quote so memorable. On another note, I wonder how Eren in the Uprising arc would feel if we learned that it was actually him who made Grisha take the founder. Would he feel better? After all, it turns out he gave the power to himself, and it was destined to happen. So the deterministic nature of the world may make it so the power is immutable in a weird roundabout way. There's also the fact that Eren himself literally embodies the attack titan and is the reason why it's considered the freedom titan. So maybe he does consider it his own. On the other hand, he still might not see the power as an essential aspect of him, since he still needed to take it from the royal family. Plus, he had already blamed himself for Grisha stealing the founder anyway, so it's not like him having an active involvement would change much. And even if the attack titan is still his own, he still accepts that he was an average Joe who happened to have the power, whether he thinks it is due to Grisha or environmental pressures. I'm not sure, but it's food for thought. Regardless of whether it would have made him feel better or worse before talking to Shadis, it's clear that he maintained the lesson he learned. Comment down what you think. What is your guys' favorite quote in this series, because you guys already know mine. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel and gain some cool perks, feel free to become a member. You won't regret it. Thanks for watching.